Hello everybody. So in this video we are going to continue working in our Node.js application. So far we have the endpoint done. We have the database. We have the schema for validation. Oh, sorry for that. We have the schema for validation. We have a random initial node to have there. That's why just to see it somehow, right? We have all the different functions to get all the nodes, get bad ID, add a new one, how to remove, how to update. So pretty much we have all them ready. All of those, of course, are integrated in the route. So we have this get request, the post request, get var ID, the put request, and the delete request. All of them are already integrated and working the way they're supposed to. Now it's time to integrate the database. And for database, we actually can use whatever we want. And the most common one is the relational database. We can even use some kind of NoSQL database. In this case, I want to use a Sqlite. So as you can see the description in the screen, it's a C language library that implements a small, fast, and self-contained, high reliability, full-featured SQL database engine. In other words, it's a binary file that behaves as a database. Pretty much, it's what it is, right? That's just a particular file that is going to be created. It's going to be saved inside our project or any other path that we actually want to use. And that will allow us to use or to have something similar as a relational database. A database will be able to actually use create tables, do joins, select queries, all of them the same way that any common relational database works, right? But on top of that, what I want to use Next.js. And I don't know if you can actually see it, but Next.js, what it is they actually call it SQL Query Builder, pretty much. So this will allow us to do our queries to call the database the best way that we can actually use them. And what is pretty neat is that this thing is actually enabled for a bunch of databases, as you can see right here. Of course, we're going to focus right now on SQLite, but the cool thing about this kind of library is if you change SQLite later for a MySQL or MariaDB, even an Oracle database, you just can connect it and you can use the same library and the same code and pretty much use the same code without having an issue. So that's pretty neat. So the first thing that we're going to use here is, let me change my language to Sqlite3. That will make all my examples work with that. And let's get started. So the first thing that we need to add, we need to install Knex, but also we need to install Sqlite3, depending, this is like the driver, let's say like that, and this is the library that will use this particular driver. We will install Knex and Sqlite3. The dash save is not needed anymore, now it's saved automatically. So we just wait for those, okay, those are done. And now we have the database installed. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Perfect. But now that we have the database installed, we need to start using it. And for using it, probably, yeah, it's going to be better to have it like this, yes. We need to specify, or we need to create a database connection. This database connection will implemented, will say pretty much that we need to specify what type of clients and the connection information. Here we have all the different examples. We're going to use Sqlite3. So this is pretty much the example that we will be using, something similar like this. We just specify the client, we specify the file name, and there is something extra. It's called use null as default. We need to be enabled to this parameter. So let's actually get started. But now that we have the database installed, we can go to our database file and we can start making some changes right here. So nano ID will not be used anymore. We will use the ID from the database, it's automatically being increased, right? So we don't need to worry about nano ID at all. So something that we can actually use is npm uninstall nano ID to remove it. As you can see, Visual Studio Code start complaining. I don't care, and we just remove it. Now, we just need to import Knex from Knex. Oh, this is complaining. Oh, that is the clever never use. And after we import it, let's actually put it, instead of do the nodes, let's actually do the database connection. Let's do, and let me go where my connection should be. This one. So we don't need to type required because Knex is already imported. So we can do something like const database is going to be equal Knex, and from Knex we need to send an object. And this object needs to have the client, and it's going to be Sqlite3, and I need to have a connection object that will require a file name. On default, let's actually call it db.sqlite. Then, as I mentioned before, we use null as default as true. Perfect. With that, we created pretty much our database object, and the database object is already put there. Now, what we need to do with this database object is to start using it. We need to export our default database. That's going to be the default object that's going to be exportable from this file. And let's actually start creating some tables here. Now, this is the recommended way in a production environment. Right now, because we are learning, we are going to use it in, I will show you. But in the real environment, you need to have your database set up, which has some kind of migration or something different that you will see right now. What I want to do is want to simplify the development, but it's not safe to have it in a production environment. So what I want to use, I want to create tables function, and this function will do something. Now this should be an asynchronous function because Knex is actually a promise-based library. That means that we can actually wait for things to happen. So we need to create our nodes table available. Let's actually call exist. It's going to be equal, and we're going to use from here something called has table. Has table, what it does is pretty much verify a specific table is there. So I will call nodes table exists is going to be equal await, of course, and we're going to await to our database.schema. As you can see here, here it says next, but we save it as database in the constant. So we need database schema has table and the name of the table. Schema that has table, and let's call this table nodes. Oops. Then we can do something like a if statement. If not, table exists. If the table doesn't exist, then we will create it. If it's already there, we can proceed. So in order to create it, it's going to be very simple. We're going to look for the create table, Oh, we have it right here. We create the table, and we have different sections that need to be implemented. And that's pretty much it. It's actually really simple, as you can see. So this works something like this. We go to the database. Of course, we need to wait. Database schema create table, and the table is going to be called nodes. And then we need to send the table object to do something with that table. So we do the table, will have an increment element that by default will be ID, and going to be my primary key. Then I will have my table will have a string called title, and we'll have another column that's going to be another string called content. Okay. Then after we have that, we just call the create table function to be run every time that we pretty much call this file, and we export the default database. So with this simple functionality, if I do npm run dev, okay, application starter, we can actually, and I believe we can actually see it. We open it over here, there you go. We have our database Sqlite file right there. And we have a typo. Now, yes, the database Sqlite file was just created, as you can see it right here. So with that, we just have that table created. Now, how can we explore this? Let me try to show you a way to do it. I believe if we can actually go to the marketplace and look for Sqlite, we have something called explore and query Sqlite databases. Maybe. Let's try this one. I don't know if it's going to work or not. And the way is just to open it. Okay, let's see. Let me go back. Let me open my Sqlite file. So this, the way that you see it, is a binary file. That's why it doesn't show anything here. So the way to open it is going to be Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P, depending if you're a Mac or Windows computer. And let's look for Sqlite. Sqlite Open Database. And let's select the database Sqlite from this directory. We select it, and what it did not, oh, there you go, Sqlite Explorer. We have it right here. And we have the nodes table, and that have an ID and title and a content file columns. So we have pretty much the skeleton that we need to have in our table, and that's actually pretty neat. Right? You can see it right here that we can actually see those. Okay, so let me put this to the right, to the left, and let me continue doing something. There's something also really cool about this, and it's basic, how can I say it? It's usually used, usually put in like a production environment, called the timestamps. So if we have the timestamp, what it's going to do, it's going to create created at updated at columns. It will help us to keep track when a data was originally inserted to the table, was created, and when it was updated. We just having that timestamp, this will pretty much do that for us. As you can see, this command, create table with table increment, a column called name, and the timestamp, will generate this SQL statement. This SQL statement, simply create table. Let me remove there. We have the ID over there. We have the name, that one, and it will created that and updated that columns with a date time in there. So it's something that I like to have in my databases. That way you can actually query, give me the newest one, give me the oldest one, things like that, right? Well, actually, let's put that one there. Let's save it. And let's close the project. Let's remove my databases. That's a pretty cool thing about the Sqlite3 is just a simple file. But with that, I just remove it. And because I remove it, I can just start again npm on development. It's a restarter. Because I remove it, this will be running again. And now we'll add my timestamp in there. So let me do a refresh here in my connection. And you will see that my created at and updated at columns are there. So this is pretty much the way that I want to handle my table, right? This is where we're going to now save the information. Now let's say that you don't want to use Sqlite. You want to use MySQL. Well, you install the client and you specify which client needs to be here. And then you have the different connection string depending the type of database that you need to execute, right? So that's the beauty about this. That way, you don't need to change anything else. You just change the connection string, and that should be it. That's why I like this kind of database. Cool. Now that we have that, we have somebody's complaining here. Oh, nano ID doesn't exist anymore. So we need to handle all this in a different way. So what I want to do now, actually, let me get everything from the nodes. I don't need it to have here. And probably this need to go out too. And let's create another file. And let's actually do a service. So let's actually put in the source directory, in my source directory right here, I will create a new folder. It's called services. And let's call the new file Node.js. Is going to be here. This is going to be my node services. Let me just put everything there. Let me go back to the database and let me get out the logger and joy, I believe. That way we'll just keep the connection string and create on the table right here. And in my nodes, I have the rest. Of course, the logger need to be mapped up. So let's actually highlight the helpers. Let's see where is my logger located. Helpers, logger. There you go. Everything is still there. Okay, we will change all these functions just a little bit. So the only things that we need to be doing here, after we just import the logger, let's actually import our database from the same place. And that will be in our helpers, but now which will be database. And with the database, we're going to be using different elements here. So the nodes array is not needed anymore. We are going to save to the database now. Let me minimize this in order to make it work better. Or actually, let me just put this like this. Perfect. So the nodes is not needed, right? The singular node is not needed, and we are not pushing anything there. We have complaints because we eliminate sections from our code. That's okay for now. So let's actually get all, and let's actually start handle this the way it's supposed to. Okay. So something really cool that you can actually do cons nodes is going to be equal await database and give me my nodes. And this should be an asynchronous function now. After we have that, we need to just return the nodes, and that's it. We are just making a simple select. This is pretty much the same as when select everything from nodes. So we just call it a database, and I'm just asking it, you know what? Give me the nodes, the nodes table. If you want to be specific, we actually put dot select, and we can select, give me just the title, for example. I don't know, something like that. But for now, we can use that one like this. So let's actually now do the one for get by ID. The function is already there. We have the ID object, and the only things I need to do is, of course, it needs to be asynchronous again, because now we're calling the database. And cons node is going to be equal await database from the database post, node where we need to say it where the ID is going to be the ID, right? And I just want to have give me just the first element. That way it will like just give me one, and we will block it. So we just make the call like that, and this is just select first where the ID equal ID. It's pretty much what we're saying here. And all this documentation is in the next. So if we do select, we can see that we can actually do as raw as they have it right here, or we have something like, let me check, like this one, select everything. It's pretty much the same as just call it, right? We have raw queries if we need it, but we can actually do, for example, where. Let me look for the where statements. Where or where select, like we can actually just pipe it up, and everything should work the way that it's supposed to. So that's well, it's pretty neat. So all this that I'm actually typing here came from the documentation. So now that we have the node, the only things that we need to do it is if the node exists, we just simple return the node. If not, we just return no. And this should be returned. So the else statement doesn't matter, right? Because this it will automatically, this is not true. Now let's see how we can actually add something. For this one, we still need to validate the information, right? So it's going to be validated. After it's validated and it's actually working the way it's supposed to, so we can just insert it somehow, right? The insert is to put something in the database. And let's actually look for the insert, not the batch one, the traditional one. And well, we can actually look it through here. Let me go to the top and let me look for insert. There you go. So insert, we'll put an item in the database, and we'll return the ID pretty much. Create an insert query, execute it, and results of promises, callback all the other rows with specific columns, shortcut of returning. So it gives you all the columns that it went in when it actually does the insert. In this case, we're just going to insert what element to the database. And let's just do it. So after we do the validation, so this is going to stay, right? We don't need to have that nano ID anymore, so we can remove that. We don't have this one over here. And we keep this one a little bit. So the things that we need to execute is going to be const ID is going to equal await to our database node, of course, and this should be asynchronous now. So with database node, we are going to insert the actually node, and we call the node as it. After this is going to be we put it there, we just make another validation. If everything went fine, we'll say if ID, and remember this is going to be an array. So if ID 0, if ID exists, so let's do if ID length is bigger than 0, that means it have at least one element in there. We're going to return await get bad ID with the ID 0 element. Pretty much. And didn't like it. Why? Redundant use of await. Okay, let's actually do this. Let's do something like this. Once node, the one that came from the database is going to be equal this section, and then we're just going to if node exists, we're going to return the node, or we're going to pretty much return null. Actually, what we were sending before, we were sending the error, right? Oh, we have the error right here. Well, yeah, let's do it like this for now. So what we're doing here, we just added the extra validation, right? Of course, we need to specify that the object is validated, is what we need to have. Then we just call it the insert. The insert will give me an array of IDs because we know that we actually just inserted one. Just posting, give me the first one, right? And get me bad ID. So we're calling the one that we just created over here. And we'll return that specific node is actually came, right? Actually, I believe we can just return the node directly. Because if there is an error, this one we will automatically return a null, so we don't need to do it again over here. We just can do something like this and it should be enough. Perfect. Now let's actually do the remove. And that's actually going to be really, really simple. and we return the whole nodes, right? That's what we're doing here. So let's change this, and of course this needs to be asynchronous. And let's do await database. And my database is going to be node dot where the ID, we're just going to delete it. As simple as that, and we just return just to have the same functionality, get all. This should be asynchronous. I don't know, it's going to const nodes equal await wait get all, and we just return the nodes object. And I need to learn to type. There you go. So we're just doing a simple select all, select where ID equal ID, give it the first one. We are just inserting it, we'll return the ID, and then say, you know what, give me that ID so I can return that object. Here, select everything from here, delete that, and then we'll just return the rest. And the update will be something like this. So we are doing the validation, that's fine. Let's actually select if that ID actually exists. So we can actually do something like this. We can remove the rest. We don't need anything from here, right? So I believe if we actually do validation, we need to verify that this ID actually exists. Well, now we can do it like that. If the node send out the information sended works, so it is what it's supposed to, we are just going to, what are we going to do here? If await get that ID with that particular ID that we have there, and needs to be asynchronous. After we can actually get it, no, let me think of what we need to do. We just need to const node equal await that. If this pass and this exists, that means that we need to validate if node exists. We need to do something about it, right? And we just need to if node exists, we just do database from database from my database nodes where the ID exists. I will just update and this is going to be important. The title with end.title and the content with end.content. Very much. Remember, we don't need to update the created at and updated at element, and we don't need to update the ID. So we're just getting the information that we actually wanted, right? So we just do that. The update, I don't know what it's going to return. Let me see if the update will return something. update. There you go. Create an update query. Fulfill callbox and array. Returns an ID. An array of ID, pretty much. Okay, so this one, what it's going to be doing, just checking the documentation. This will return an ID. Well, we already have it, so we don't need to do it. And actually, we need to wait for this, right? We wait for that element, and then we just return. Let's actually make this node like this. And here, after we await, we're going to change again the node object in order to return it. We will need to call the database again. Probably not the most efficient way to do it, but yeah, it's going to work. And we just return that node. If not, we return null. We have, I believe, everything created. Okay. So now that we have the database connection, and the service node uses that connection. Yeah, this is pretty much this need. Let's fix our root. So let's go to the node root, and everything should be probably mess up. Actually, from the database we imported everything as node. Okay, this is no. Okay, so what we need to do, everything is node, and this will came from my services node. Let me save it. Let me see what is complaining here. Let me restart the server. Okay, I believe that should work because we keep the same names and we just reroute it to get the node from here. We don't need to make a connection to the database anymore because the node service is already doing the database connection. That's pretty much what is happening. So let's open Insomnia and let's start testing our app. Okay, sorry for that. It's something that we're doing the other day. Have the node example. So let me just get my nodes, and it's okay, and we don't have anything. That means the database is empty, and it's doing what it's supposed to. Let's change this. Let me rename it, and you will see that section is pretty cool. How can I rename it? Settings, get node. Perfect. Let's duplicate this and let's create or post create node. Let's make another call called create node, and that one should be a post request. And the node, let me just remove from the get. We don't need to have anything in the body, right? Create node. We need to have a node object with a title and a content. So if we try this, one should fail. Oops, it didn't fail. but it didn't save it anymore either. Yeah. So let me just add the content here. Content. And it should be double quote, sorry. Content. Send it. Yeah, I didn't like it. Let's see what we mess up. Let me put to the left. Let me actually open my server. Content. Oh yeah, we have the issue here, but it didn't give you an issue over here. Okay, it looks like the calls are actually working. The post to API node is giving me a 200. It should be working in theory. And I can see that it's actually being recorded here, but it's not working. Okay, so I have another program called DB browser for Sqlite. It's another way to actually open a Sqlite database. And let me move that over there. And let me just open. I will go to my home directory. I have that inside projects, server node, and we have the database Sqlite right here. So we have the nodes. We have all the table. Okay, we do browse the table. Oh yeah, we have the content. Interesting. We have the content, so that means if I do something like this, posting it, and I refresh, I should have 11 records now. So yeah, the database actually been saved. But that means that this one is not doing what it's supposed to. So let's see what happened with it with our route. Let me open this again. Let me do a logger here. And let's call this getting all the nodes. Just to see if that actually gets called. And we have an issue. Logger is not a function. It didn't like the logger. Oh yeah, logger.info. Need to specify the level of the log. Okay. So let me call this again. And let me see my call. Yeah, getting all the nodes. I can see that it's actually been there, but it's not working. That's interesting. Why it's not working? And I'm getting tired to see all this, so sorry for this. Let me just create new one. And let me put one on each. There you go. So it's going to be maximize it, dismiss it. Perfect. Sorry for that, guys, but yeah. So make the call, and this is not going to the database actually. Let's try to print that. So let's do logger.debug mode, and let's print the nodes. And let's see what happened. Okay. Send it. Yeah, it's not been there. Let's change this to info, just in case. It's a starter, sending. Yeah, those are there. As you can see, the nodes object exists. And it gave me my 11 elements. We just saved it a lot. We have an issue with created and updated that, so it's something that we need to address right now. But for now, so that means this function is actually calling it. So we can remove this. We know that this is actually returning what it's supposed to return. So that means that the issue is in our route. Oh, I know what it is. We changed the get all to be an asynchronous. So we just need to specify that my middleware is there, and we just need to wait to send that response. Yeah, probably it's just that. So let's try it again. Use restarter, okay. Make it call. It did not work. If I do node service, let's call this node service, and let's do a heap const node equal await node service dot get all, and we're going to send our nodes. Let's, if we change something like this, maybe restarter, let's send it. There you go. Okay, something was lost in translation with the synchronous call, but now, sorry for that, guys. We'll see that now everything is being saved right there. If we create a new one, we have an error. Oh, because we changed the node for the node service. So we need to address that too. Okay. So let's fix the issue that we have here. So this is not going to be nodes anymore. It's actually now called node service. And let's make it plural, node services. It's going to be node services, node service, and a node service. Okay. We post a new one. Let's see if it actually works. It need to return something. We need to handle that better. But here, the last item it was 11. Now the last item is 12. So we're actually saving information to the database. We had an issue how to retrieve that information. It's a little bit tricky because we are now talking about asynchronous call, right? We cannot wait, we're gonna have some kind of loading here. So we just need to specify what kind of things need to wait in order to get a response before actually doing something about it. So we have that. So let's fix our node service. We just add in the node, right? So we can actually do something like this. We're going to serve everything from n, right? And we need to create it underscore add, need to be a value, and let's call new date. That's going to give you pretty much today, something like that. And let's do the updated underscore add, and let's call it like that, I believe. Where is it? Here. Created add and updated add. So when we insert it, we're going to put a new date there, and updated add is going to be new date. Lesson. Okay, this A doesn't should be there. Okay, you just get a stutter, perfect. So let's make another call. Let's insert the same one, and let's get it. And now we have the created and the updated with specific date. Now this date is the UTCS thing, right? Like the one that we need. How can I say it? The one that it gets saved, but now we have pretty much the one. How can I call it? It's like the seconds, right? That the computer save date information. Probably we can make this a little more pretty. So I don't know if we can do something like to day string. So probably we can save it to day string. Let's see if it actually works. Let me create another one. And let me get it. And yes, it's a lot better. Now we have the particular date that is going to be saved. Perfect. We can use probably date time string. Is that a thing? Oops. Oops. Okay. Let's see. To local date string. Let's try this one. This is what it does. What I want to set is the hour. And now, what about this? Probably a little more readable. The local date string, Monday. And can we use to time string? Okay, it's getting better. But now we need just to do to local string. Probably. So we just create it. And sorry, this is trial error. There you go. This is what I want to see. I want to see the day and the hour. So we can actually see when we update something, we're going to be seeing this getting updated. And you will see in a minute. Okay, print it. Let me close this for a minute. And let me delete my SQL file. And let me rename it, create it again. There you go. So that way, this just get cleaned up. Perfect. So let's create a new node. And that node should be here with ID 1 and all the information the way it's supposed to. Cool. So that means if we duplicate this, get node by ID, we do get me the first node, we should be receiving that particular node over here. And it's not working. So let's fix that. And it's going to be something really similar as we did with the other route, with the asynchronous call. So get by ID, this is going to be asynchronous, this is going to be await, and probably that's it. That should be enough. So if we make a call, now it's actually coming. This one gave us an array for all the nodes, and this will get a ID depending on what is the ID that we're sending there. If we're sending an ID that doesn't exist, like this number, this thing, it's given 404 with a not found issue. One is sending me the correct ID. So that means that if we make this as another node with another content, oh, we need to do the await thing too. If we call the nodes, You can vote. We can bar ID. It's 1. Change this to 2. You get a second one. Print it, right? So let's go to the post. That's pretty much the add. This needs to be asynchronous. And we need to wait for this to happen. Very much. What else? For the put. Still need to be asynchronous. And we need to wait for this. And for the delete, it's pretty much the same. Asynchronous. And we need to wait to this to happen. Oh, this should be it. So we get all the nodes. We get by ID. Cool. We can create another one. Third node. Third content. There you go. We will make this call. You get the 3 of them. So now let's actually update one. So let's duplicate this one over here and let's call this update node. Let's call it, and we need to call it to the node number 3. Let's update that one. Let's call it to update it and update it. We send that. We have an issue. What is the issue? Let me see if I make the call again. Yeah, it didn't work. Oh, I'm making a post request to 3. So this actually needs to be a put. The post to with ID, it doesn't exist. It needs to be a put method. Let's make that. Okay. We have the updated node. And let's go to the node. Now we have the updated. Now, one last thing. We didn't change this and we need to handle it. For that, I will go to node services. Wherever I just do the update, I do title and content, right? Because I just need those two from there, pretty much. So actually, I can do something like this. Let's get the title and the content from the node, right? And here we just can make a smaller code like this. We're going to save that title content is going to be sent there, but then the updated add is going to be new date to, what we call it, the other one, to local string. Why we did it like that? Let me show you in a minute. That's for just change the updated app. That's it. The application just restarted. Perfect. So let's update this. As you can see, the last update was at 10:46. If I send it again with the same content, or let me add just something extra. Ooh, we have an issue here. Couldn't connect to the server. They arrived to local string calling incompatible receiver. Ooh, we have an issue with that. Oh, wait, this is a function. Sorry. Let's make this call. Okay, just get updated. Let me just see. We can see the content, and you can see 10:46. And if we update it with the new data, you can see that now we have the new date, the new hour here, 3 minutes later. If we do that again, this just get at the time that we just run it or create it. Pretty cool. One last thing, We can duplicate this one. Let's call it delete node, and it should be a delete. And let's delete the second one. It doesn't require to have anything there. We send it. We just get 1 and 3. If we go to all the nodes again, the 2 it should not be there anymore. Ready. If we open our browser and let me just refresh this database. How can I refresh it? Let me actually just do open database. Let's try to open it again. I can see just the 2 ones that we have there. Pretty cool. So that's in this. How long do we? Oh, an hour actually. So in this hour, what we did, we just created a connection to the database in our code. We put our insomnia calls to be a little more helping us for the troubleshooting. We saw some issues and we start reading on the console what is actually happening. And we learned that we need, for any asynchronous call, we need to wait for that. And that's what actually making the issue. The cool thing about this, if as you saw it several times, if I close it and restart the app, my information is persistent now. I don't lose it because I save it in a database. So one last thing that I want to add here, and this is for best practices too. I was almost doing it wrong. So what I want to do is, I want to change this one and this one and to be sent through the env file. So we need to do something like, let's do this as database connection, and let's call this database type equal Sqlite3, and let's do database file, and let's put an underscore here probably for readability purposes. It's going to be equal to db.sqlite. So making those changes, I need to remember to put those on my example without the data, right? I need to remember something extra that I need to do before I continue. In my git ignore, where is my git ignore? I need to add everything that is Sqlite. The database does not need to be saved in my version controller application to GitHub. So we remove that from there. Perfect. So all the Sqlites, it should not be there. And one last thing is going to the database object, and this will change to process.env database type, and this will change to process.env.database file, and you're missing a dot here. Let me close it. Just let me run it again, just to make sure that it will take the new information. So we have that. Let's make a call, and it's still working. That means that is getting the information the way it's supposed to. So for this, I will just close my server. I will git add all my files, git commit, add db connection, and git push origin master to update the repository. On the next video, I will show you how to deploy your application. So for now, I hope that you like it. Any question or doubt, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.